Hello, everyone. Welcome to Be Seen, a space where stories become mirrors and conversation becomes a way home to yourself. I'm your host, Kamsi, and I'm so excited for today's episode. It is with an amazing person, amazing woman, amazing lady, and she's a licensed psychologist, an amazing therapist. She owns her own therapist service, and just an all-round amazing person. I always say that anytime I speak to Judith, our next guest, it feels like I'm in a therapy session, honestly. And I think I actually need to have her as my therapist at some point, but it is the amazing, wonderful Judith Guadibo.
Thank you for having
Welcome,
me.
Judith. Welcome to TBC. And I'm so excited to have you here. I feel like, I don't think I've asked this to you, but you're someone that anytime I speak to, it's probably a therapist thing. Maybe I don't know what they teach you guys in that in that psychology school where it's like they make people feel comfortable. Like I just feel like anytime I speak to you, it feels like a safe space, right? It just feels like a safe space. I feel like I can just tell you all my life secrets. I haven't done that, but maybe I should. So yeah, I wanted to first of all just like let you know how excited I am to have you on this episode. And the reason why I actually wanted you to be on here, you might not I didn't say this to you, so you wouldn't know, but I watch a lot of your videos, like the videos that you share, whether it's like through your Thrive clan or through your your own community and all of that. And it's just every single time I watch a lot of your videos, I just feel like, oh my gosh, like, are you talking to me? Are you talking about me? Is this me? Like, who told you my secrets, right? And, obviously this podcast is to be seen. And so I feel like you're one person that I actually feel very seen by. Not necessarily because, like, oh, we're best of friends or we know each other so well, but because I think you just have a way of understanding people. I mean, it makes sense because you're a psychologist. But beyond that, I think there's something about you, your aura, your person. And, of course, we also have, like, the connection of having work together on Limitless Club and all of that and just being part of that process. And I think you make everyone feel comfortable. And so I'm very excited about this conversation. So in line with that, like, being a therapist and being a psychologist and all of that, like, you're always in the therapist chair, you're always the one providing advice, always the one providing guidance and counsel and all of that, right? What has that taught you about yourself? Because I feel like it's so interesting how, like, you're learning about other people, like, you're trying to hold space for them, but I'm sure that definitely through that process, you're also learning about your own self.
Yeah.
So what has therapy, what has psychology, working in that, how has that taught you about yourself? And I mean that from a personal lens, like not just from like a work perspective, but like personally.
Therapy is a revealer, right? It unearths a lot of things. It's just like you have a conversation with a friend and then they say something they're concerned about and you're like, oh, I experienced something like that. So maybe you can help them, right?
Yeah.
But what therapy does is because you're exposed to diverse cases, you're seeing how this person managed this and it resulted in this lifestyle they currently are living.
Yeah.
So some repeating certain patterns.
Yeah.
And what that does is I'm seeing some pattern in myself where yes, specifically, let me give an example of a pattern. I'm very independent.
Yeah.
Right, so I have avoidance
Are you a first
tendency.
daughter?
I am.
Hi, God, we need to open group chats for all of us.
So I have avoidance tendencies. So sometimes in relationships, I'm just like, yeah, cool, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
let's move on. Let's not feel that emotion. Like,
I don't go too deep. I now
Wow.
realized it. I was like, It was when I was having a conversation, I realized that I'm used to people talking to me, so people opening up to me, but I rarely open up. And that's when I knew I struggled with emotional intimacy. Right, so
that is so interesting. Wait, like, you're literally like your whole life is really about like having people open up.
Yeah.
And it's hard for you to do that,
Yeah.
knowing how important it is. That's so interesting.
yeah, but it's better now. And where it's where that happened is because you are wearing a hat where people expect perfection from you.
Yeah.
You're a therapist. I've heard people say, oh, your life should be perfect.
Yeah.
Your marriage will be perfect.
Yeah.
This will be perfect.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have
not life.
temper.
Yeah.
Issues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm human.
You're human, literally.
I can regulate. I might be able to pick things up faster.
Yeah.
I have tools to be able to manage the emotional difficulties if
Yeah.
I have them. But it doesn't mean I don't feel them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that when someone does something that hurts me, I won't feel the hurt.
Yeah.
I will feel it. I'm human.
Yeah.
I'm vulnerable, things like that. And what that allowed me to do is when I saw it in myself, I started going deeper into that. So safe spaces, because when you want to explore vulnerability, you don't want to explore it when you don't feel safe, because it's just going to backfire, and it's going to make you even more avoidant.
Yeah, because you're like, you see, I'm right. I mean, you see, I didn't want to talk to this
Do you
person. Now, I'm talking
understand?
about, now my whole gist is on the street.
You know?
Yeah.
Or the person just did not get it, so they invalidated your feelings.
Yeah.
You know? Whatever the case may be, and it will just make you retreat even further. So what I did was, like I said, peer support. And that peer support, you know, with superiors and also with peers.
Like your friends?
With colleagues, because most of my difficulty were professional.
Okay, I was going to say, like, what about the personal thing? Like, you're going to talk about this with your so it's just the professional stuff were mostly...
Yeah, but personal level, on a personal level, my siblings, somehow my people I disclose the most to.
Interesting. 'Cause the reason why I'm even asking about this is because, like, you know how we said we're both, like, first daughters. Like, I didn't really clock it, but I realized that, you know, it was also a thing where, as a first daughter, at least from my own experience, I was expected to always have it all together. Like, I was expected to always have it all figured out. I was expected to always be the example for my brother and for, like, you know, your other family members, and even worse than that, like, I was this model child who was, you know, straight A student, you know, coming first in class, all of that. And so, like, even with, like, friends and all of that, I was the person that was, quote unquote, the one that just seemed like she had her head on her shoulders. Like, I was always the one that people come to for advice. Like, okay, Kamsi will know what to say, Kamsi will know what to do, Kamsi. And so somehow, like, for a lot of people that are like that, you don't think that you have anybody that you can feel comfortable to do that with, because you think that that is not even who you are. You're supposed to be the one that's always helping. You're supposed to be the one that people are always stretching out their hands to. You don't know who to stretch out your hands to. And so that was a lesson that I had to learn in my own life. And of course, like, I mean, I feel like now I've come a long way. Like, I feel there are people that I'm very, very comfortable with sharing these things with. Obviously, my husband, some close friends. But it took me some time to get to that place, because I felt like there was this hyper independence where you just think that, you know, at the end of the day, like, I can do good all by myself and I can do bad all by myself. Like, I don't necessarily really need anyone to share and open up with. And I did not know how to be vulnerable. And so it's like, you just think that whatever you're dealing with, like, you figure it out. Like, it's not you, that kind of thing. So how did you heal from that? How did you get to that point where you were like, or maybe you're still healing from it, maybe you haven't completely gotten out of it, but how did you get to that point where you realized that it's actually okay to need other people, particularly as someone who might be a bit hyper independent, or someone who is always that friend that never has any problems, you know?
What helped me, right? A lot of things, right? So it's never one thing, you know, it's like a myriad of experience. And you're like, So I started vulnerability on the mild level. So I'll share a little and see how it's received, you know. Okay, it's fine. It's actually safe to do this, right? Because I didn't just jump to the deepest level of vulnerability.
Yeah,
you know, vulnerability comes in skills. So it's like you have the mild level where, okay, you know, I can talk to a point where I don't feel like it will hurt me, but I also feel like I can be seen still. I can be understood to some degree, right? And also, I had to accept that if I wanted real relationships, anyone who wants real relationship needs to be vulnerable to some degree, right? So, yes, just like you said, I'm the same way, my friends. The person who you would come for advice, you know. I'm the therapist in my friend group.
Of course you are. Like, I'm so sorry. If I was your friend, like, I would be best. Judith, please, like, I'm going through this. Help me.
But it's isolating as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's like, okay, so when I'm going through something, it's like I should have it figured out. Because since I already have the advice for someone else, but sometimes you can know. We all have wisdom within ourselves. Yeah. And that's why I know even people who ask for advice, it's not that they don't have the answers. Sometimes they just want it to be bounced again.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You even have people in sessions, in therapy sessions, some of these things, they are things that they know. Do you understand? There are some concerns they have. So you're having recurrent conflict with your partner, right? And it's getting to the point where the scale of the conflict is getting to almost dissolving your relationship. Yeah, you know? And a lot of some tweaks, like after a few sessions, they come to the realization. It's not that they did not know about it, it's that, okay, they just needed the clear guidance, right? Yeah. More clarity. So for me, what helped me, right, because I'm still on the journey, but what has helped me so far is finding people I trust, right? Building the trust gradually, of course. Yeah. But finding people I trust, and then allowing myself to, it's okay even if they betray me.
I don't know about it's okay, but
because it will be to the extent that I allow. Yeah. Because the information you provide, you know that, okay, so even if it goes to another person, like,
but that's still you trying to protect yourself. Like, I know I've read somewhere that, like, you know, if you're trying, for example, if you're trying to heal from, relationship issues, or that feeling of like feeling betrayed in relationship, you can do your own personal healing, but there's a lot of healing that has to be done in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that if you're struggling with being vulnerable to people, the way out of that is still being vulnerable to people.
You have to expose.
You have to allow yourself to be exposed. I think that's the scary part, because you're like, if I just keep this to myself, like I'm safe, like nothing's gonna happen, no one can hurt me. But when you open yourself up, that is when you can be disappointed or betrayed and all of that. But that's the only way out, really. So I completely resonate with what you said. But I think that you start small. Like you can't just wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna overshare to this person, or like,
never overshare.
You shouldn't even overshare in the first place. Yeah.
But it's exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is always gradual first, right?
Yeah.
So someone who is afraid of elevators, you start with just looking at pictures of elevator, open, close, imagine yourself in it. It's gradual before you even walk into it.
I'm just imagining looking at pictures of elevators. Would I think that I'm not okay?
No, but like if it's like something very terrible, you actually cannot manage it. And then you do short rides. Okay, 1 floor, right? Yeah. Just gradually till you get to the point where you can do a full on, 7 floors. Oh, you go to Dubai, you go all the way, you understand? And then you're like, no, I'm here. But it's gradual. So exposure is still the same way. Whatever it is that is your feared stimulus, I'm going to expose myself because that's the only way I can get over it. But I'm going to do it in a gradual fashion, right? So when I say accepting that it's possible that a person can betray me, it's not that I feel like the person is like terrible. So for example, me sharing to maybe an ICU doctor about my concern is also helping them as well. Yeah. Yeah, because true, actually, it helps them to not be so alone as well. Yeah. So they could come to me. There was someone who I spoke to about something, and then the next time he told me about something else, and it couldn't have come out if I had not started it. Right, he told me something he was like really concerned about, personally. It wasn't even professional, but it was something that I was able to assist him with. But because I opened the door, do you understand? And it's like, okay, so if he tells, like, imagine, so what if you tell someone that, yeah, your therapist in the hospital, she was crying in the office, so what? Yes, I'm human.
These are never as bad as we think about in our head. Yeah. But how do you know when someone is worth opening up to? Because I think that's a $1 million question for a lot of people, because sometimes like it's, you want to share, you want to open up, you even want to even become even more vulnerable, but you're scared, like you don't want to be hurt, of course. Who wants to be hurt? And so even like whether it's in relationships, like whether it's a guy and a guy meets girl is trying to be vulnerable to the guy or open up or whatever it is, but she's been burnt in the past, or it's someone that is like, for example, like has negative friendships, like negative experiences rather with like female friendships. I've had a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't like having friends that are girls, and I always find that so wild. But then it definitely always comes from experience, right? And so them trying to get comfortable with being open again to friendships. So I think in any of those like verticals, what does it look like? How do you know when someone is safe to open up to? Do you even ever know?
Do you ever know? Yeah. Right. Sometimes we'll have to take that wild leap, right? But not in its entirety. So some signals will already be given. So for example, sometimes we'll say the length of time you know someone, but let's be for real. How many people, do you understand, you've known for a long time and you still feel very safe? Some you don't. Some you don't. Some you meet them newly and you feel very, very safe with. Yeah. I think it's about how you feel around them, right? That's because a good one. Your instinct tells you as well. So how safe do I feel? How at ease do I feel, with this person? Sometimes we communicate even without our words. Yeah. So you're talking to someone, their eye contact, sometimes even their look is almost condescending, almost like, you did that, almost judgy, you feel like...
Sometimes, isn't that in your head sometimes? Because because sometimes I feel like trauma can actually also inform the way you perceive external stimulus. You know what I mean? Like if someone is used to someone like me, for example, like they're in situations whereby people are always talking down at them and everything, and they haven't healed from that. Then they talk to someone and they're like, the person is just telling them, oh, I think, you can do this better. And they're like, you're talking down on me. Like, maybe that's actually just like constructive criticism. But I hear what you say about like how you feel about it. I think that's a good indicator, because I read somewhere that a lot of times like our nervous system knows when someone is not safe. And sometimes it tries to kind of like signal us. Do you believe that?
I do. I do. But back to that trauma aspect, let's touch on it. So when, someone has trauma, truly, right, your lens is skewed. Yeah. So your lens of how you see the world is different from the way the other person. So someone can tell you, oh, I love your hair, and you're conscious and you're like, wait, it's different colors. What if the person is like, the color is not so good, brown is not great on my skin, Yeah. The person's thinking about a lot more things than I said. What you need to do there is clarity. Because what you're doing is mind reading, and it's a cognitive distortion. So when you engage in any form of cognitive distortions, you always be wrong, right? So mind reading is why I always avoid assumption. Ask questions, right? What do you love about my hair? I love the way you know, the style and the way it's straight down.
I
It's
think
like,
you.
you understand? You know, and you're clear on why the person likes it. As opposed to you assuming, oh, is she being honest about it? Or maybe that smirk she gave was like, she's, you know, it's passive aggressive, maybe sarcastic. You understand? Ask questions. When you're not sure, still ask questions. And most times those trauma, it could even be from you in a relationship with someone who, part of the horsemen you experience. So the horsemen, some of them would be like criticism, someone who constantly criticizes you. You know, someone who criticizing your character, yourself, that's contempt. So there's nothing you do that's ever right. And imagine going into a different relationship and someone tells you, you did that again. And where the person is coming from is really, they saw something previously and they saw it again and they're like, you did that again?
Yeah.
But you've taken it to the point where your past partner will tell you, you did that again, but this person is talking about your character, trying to hurt your person. So what's better to do here is, what did I do? Ask questions about it. And the person tells you, this is it. Oh, what don't you like about it? Keep asking. And then you are sure, you are clear on what the information is the person is trying to pass. Because sometimes we're not listening. We're only listening with what we think is, you know, being communicated.
That's very true.
So here, if you don't understand, ask questions. Paraphrase it to the person again to be sure that we're on the same page. Oh, what I'm hearing you say is. Is that why you hear therapy say?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say is.
Yeah.
So I'm not assuming anything you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're like, you can correct me to be sure, okay, we're on the same page, and then we now move forward.
I love that. I actually really love that. I feel like, you know, but something that you said that just like triggered something in my mind, where it's that a lot of times when people are acting from a place of trauma, they are not aware of it. They actually don't know that they're acting from a place of trauma. And I think that, you know, even generally, it doesn't have to even be something that is extremely, like, you know, devastating or something very, very huge. But it's even little things like being someone who's very easily defensive, like is super defensive, or someone who cannot be able to take feedback because they are immediately like, or someone who has a bit of anger issues, but they don't necessarily know, or someone who has an attitude, like where everything is just like, they see everything through a negative lens. Obviously, it could be so many different things. But, but what I'm trying to say is, how does someone, because you know how they always say that it's hardest to see your own nose. Like everyone else is seeing is right there. Like sometimes you're like, can't this person see that what they're doing does not make sense? But a lot of times they are not seeing it. Like you are seeing it and it's so obvious to you, but it's not obvious to them. And so what I'm asking here, because I'm asking even just for myself, like how do we know when we're the problem? How do we know when we're doing things that are from a place of trauma, from a place of maybe even conditioning, but, you know, maybe we're the last person to see it. How are we able to see ourselves more clearly from a psychological standpoint?
Yeah, this is a self-awareness question.
Yeah, it is actually.
Because with self-awareness, we have, you know, different ways we experience ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's the aspect of us that we know and the world knows, right? That's the aspect that's like, it's visible, you know, everybody, it could be like, your childhood, you know, people you shared that childhood with. So that's an experience, you know, they have with you, some memories, right? It could be, you know, certain things that you just shared, maybe some vulnerability, no matter how dark it is, you know, some vulnerability you shared, but it's open to you and also open to somebody else. Then there's the hidden self, right? The hidden self is the aspect to you that you know, but other people don't know, right? So that's the aspect that is more my dreams, maybe my goals, maybe my fears. You know, people don't know about that. Then there's the aspect that people know of you and you don't know of yourself. That's your blind spots. And that's what you're describing, basically. So blind spots is, you know, the self that you are not very aware that you have, right? And what helps with blind spots is feedback. And that's why you need to have people around you that are honest and not just yes men or yes women always telling you you're great. You did wonderfully. No
like
feedback.
Fans, like just you know? Everything you do is great. Yeah.
People who can bounce off the truth with you, tell you there was something you did, it wasn't so great. Oh, I noticed you have a tendency to get angry when someone gives you this feedback. And the person is angry. This is one of the examples. But like, don't try to poke it to the point where the person feels hurt. You're not trying to hurt the person's character. What you are trying to do. So from the lens of someone who is trying to get feedback to learn their blind spot, and also from the person who is going to be giving the feedback, have empathy first, right? Understand that this person doesn't know. So it will be it would be a stretch for them to accept it.
Yeah.
So allow them time, and you have to communicate in a compassionate manner.
Yeah.
Let them know that, okay, so I noticed, so it could be maybe a parent. Parents are hard to even give feedback to.
Please don't even very,
Parents
very
are hard
hard.
to give feedback to. But there are some things parents need to hear,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's even like Nigerian parents. I mean, I can only speak from Nigerian parent context because like that's what I know from. But I think also like there's this sense of like you are an elder. What the elder sees sitting down, the young person cannot sit down. So like so they cannot
Yeah.
sit standing up. So it's like a sense of like I'm older than you, I know more than you. You cannot advise me. What do you know? Look at this little child. What do you think? So I think that there's like a cultural aspect of it where like the older generation and everything, like they don't know how to take feedback because they have been told that they're the ones that know. That you're supposed to be the ones to teach the younger ones. And it's like life is actually about learning, just constant learning. Like you can learn from someone who is younger than you, someone who is older than you, someone who is at the same age as you. Like it's not about, it's about experience. It's about like, and you know what you just said about blind spots, and I want us to talk a little bit more about that. But it made me realize like that's very, 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 very true, because sometimes feedback, you don't necessarily see some things about yourself until another person points it out. And if it comes from someone who is like you trust and is loving or saying in a compassionate way, like it's helpful for you to be able to receive that. For myself, for example, like I know something that my husband actually used to tell me about in a very, very like sweet way. Like he never said in a very in a condescending way, but it's something I genuinely did not know about myself. He was like, Kamsi, do you know that you bypass negative emotions? You don't allow yourself to sit with them. He didn't say it in these exact words, but he was basically that, you can literally say something like, oh, like Kamsi, like, I don't think I'm feeling so well today. I'm like, God forbid, you're feeling fine. That sounds like, but then genuinely, like, I'll just be like, oh no, you're fine, don't worry about it. Sometimes I don't even realize when I'm doing it. He might say something like, I don't know, like, I don't think we should go this place because of like, right now, this place is very, very like insecurity here and everything. And I'm like, no, there's no insecurity, like, we'll be fine. We're okay, we're covered by God. And I actually want to talk about that, but like and the thing is that I didn't necessarily know that I was, because for me, I'm someone of faith, so I'm very, very much like, God is my protector, God is my supply, God is the one that is directing me, God. So like I'm very, very confident in God.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I recognized how it started spilling into toxic positivity, where sometimes I was not able to even be like, okay, this is something that needs to be done, or it's something that is bad. Like I got to a point where I realized, and because of my husband's feedback to me, I got to a point where I realized that, oh my gosh, I don't actually really, really know how to engage with things that are not good. Like, I don't know how to engage with things that are not good, in the sense that it's like immediately something happens or I hear something that is not a positive thing, I shut it down in my mind. I didn't even realize that I'll explain the process in which I was able to do that, and I get to that point where I realized this was what I was actually doing. But I just know that he would say something like, for example, like, oh, I just shared, and in a very, very positive, like loving way, but I just shared something about, this, and you've already told me like, no, it's fine, I'm okay. But I'm trying to share, like, and I was just like, wait, that's true. Why am I doing that? Like, why am I not allowing him the space to be able to share things that are not straight? Or why do I feel like even I myself do not have the right to be able to share something that is seemingly negative? Maybe it's because somehow I've started using positivity as a way to protect myself, where I feel like if I'm in this bubble where I'm safe and I can protect and I can just kind of like curate the experience that I'm having, somehow along the line, I just was not able to see things as what they were. And I'm not trying to say that I'm delusional, right? But the truth is that, like, I learned that it was hard for me to, for example, if someone told me, and I think weirdly, actually, it was easier for me to do it with, like, people who were close to me than people who are far. Because when people are far, I'm like, oh, I understand your pain. When someone is close, I'm so protective of them. Like, no, I don't want you to feel bad or feel down. Like, no, you're okay, you're fine. But it's like, what if they're not okay? What if they're not fine? What if there's something that needs to be done there? Why you're not able to create space for that? And I realized that I went through a whole rabbit hole of self-discovery where I realized that the reason why that is because I was the quote-unquote responsible, good child, person that you never had to worry about. And so somehow along the line, I was a child that was just always positive, always the one that brought good news. So I didn't know how to be someone that, I felt like to be anything that was not straightforward, and anything that seemed a bit negative was just, I didn't want to have that, to engage with that.
So how did you process it? How are you handling it now?
I think first of all, like the first step, when it sounds cliche, but the first step is actually recognition of something.
It's not cliche. It's cliche for the reason that
Yeah,
it works,
no, because it works. No, generally it's like recognition. Like generally, like when you said blind spot, I never thought about it in that language because I didn't have the psychological language. But that was actually a blind spot for me. I didn't realize that. Oh, like it's hard for me to stay with something that is just not straightforward. Like I just don't. So I first recognized because first of all, like the person is coming from, like you said, is someone that I trust. He's not going to tell me something that is not true. He spends a lot of time with me, so he's seeing things about me. And then when he said it, I said it the first time I was defensive about it. I was like, no, I don't do that now. I mean, no, right. And then he said it a couple of times in different conversations, like always in a very like, loving way. But then it's like, I started realizing that, oh, wait, like, you said something and I've already immediately just tried to like put a positive spin and a positive bow on that particular thing because I don't want to engage with it. Like, if it's about you, like, what do you mean? No, you're fine. This is fine. We are fine. This is... And I'm not even saying, it was little things, like it's not even some like big things, it's just little things like, oh, maybe I need to, I have a cough, I need to go to, like, no, you don't need to go to. And it's so funny, like I will immediately return, like it's almost like, that's my own way of like rebuking, like it's not possible. And so first of all, recognizing that after being told and given that feedback a lot of times, recognizing that actually, I'm actually doing this. Why am I doing this? And so one thing I'm a very big advocate of is journaling. Like as a way of like metacognition, like recognizing your own thoughts, like, thinking about your own thoughts. And so I was like, okay, you know what? The next time this happens, I'm going to try to like unpack, like, what am I trying to do here? And the next time it happened, he mentioned, and it's not like he mentioned it. A lot of times he would even mention it because he'd be like, you know what, like maybe I don't want to like oversay it, but then I will do it. And he was like, oh, you're still doing that thing. He said, and then I'll be like, oh, okay. And I went back and I sat down and I just sat with it.
It's great that he was giving the feedback.
I appreciate that because I feel like, if anything, like in relationships that are trust and are safe, like you should be able to give each other like feedback. It's just about the way you communicate it, but it's very important because, I mean, what's the point? Like, we're together, we should be able to help each other to be better. Yeah. Right? And so I sat with it and I was like, why do I do this? Kamsi? Like, what does that even look like? And I started realizing that, and opening up and unpacking, I realized that it was not just to him or like, even to other people, like it was even to myself. Like, I didn't allow myself to sit with anything that felt even uncomfortable in any way. Like I would just shut it down. I would shut it down and I would camouflage it with like positive feelings and like even sometimes even faith. But I don't think faith means that, not if I don't think, faith doesn't mean to disassociate. It doesn't mean to neglect your feelings and how you feel. Like Jesus wept. You're supposed to process emotions that are not positive, even if you're supposed to do something about it. And so I recognize that, okay, this is what I'm doing. I recognize that I was probably doing this because of the fact that, I've always been the person who was fine. So I didn't know how to not to be fine for myself. And so that was my way of like my own like defense mechanism. And I also did not know how to hold space for other people's not fineness as much as I thought I did, actually. Because I never thought I had this issue. Right, particularly someone that I cared so much about, because for me, I'm like, it's a way of protecting them in my head. And so that was like my own recognition of it. And then I used to just journal about it. I'm like, okay, trying to understand like when I do it, what I'm doing and all of that. And then now being conscious about, okay, for example, like why do I want to to be different? Why do I want to not do this? Because it's important for me to allow people to be, to allow people to actually be themselves, to be seen, to connect, to share. Because if they cannot share with you who they're so close to, like who can they share it with, right? You have to allow yourself to be a safe space for other people, because you also will want that for yourself as well. And so one of the things I started doing was that when I'm dealing with something, like when I'm not okay, when any friend will ask, I'm like, oh, I'm not okay. I don't think I'm okay right now. Like I'm a bit down, I'm a bit low. That was so hard for me. And it's funny because, I didn't even really connect the two, but like that thing I said about like this hyper independence, you don't know how to be vulnerable. I realized that it was also a sense of, I also did not know how to stay with things that were negative because like I just bypassed them. What thing did you just put in your stew? All you therapists, how is it not a therapy session? I don't even know how this became about me, but I mean, I guess someone that's listening probably was relate, so it's fine. I'm sharing this, but I think recognizing it, hearing the feedback, recognizing it's actually a thing, recognizing and doing something about it, trying to do little small things to allow yourself to feel, to share. When people share something with you that is negative, don't immediately say, God forbid, no, it's not going to happen. Hear them out. Listen, don't even speak. Just be there, hold space for that person, for that conversation, for that hard feeling, right? And so I started doing that gradually, and I think that over time I've gotten better. I definitely have gotten better with that. But yeah, that's it. I don't know what this is called, but I think back to what we're talking about is that, that is one of the ways that you're able to recognize blind spots in yourself, right? So what else? What are the other ways in which people are able to, I guess, process what be more self-aware and to recognize their own sometimes toxic traits, things that are coming from a place of trauma. What else is there aside from what you've shared, of course?
Yeah, what else is there? But before we go to what else is there, you were talking about something.
Okay.
And it's interesting, right? So, you got feedback, start working on feedback. Something also when it comes to when you notice that you tend to just try to cover it with something positive. My mom does that. Jesus is going to handle it. Things like that.
I think we grew up in homes that did, yeah.
Yeah, but you want to balance it because yes, Jesus will handle it. So there's something that I like to say to my clients, right, is that pray as if you're only going to focus on, like, that's the only source of your solution, right? Pray as if that's the only source of your solution. And get the professional support as if that's the only source of your solution. So balance it. There's a reason God gave the wisdom to, for medical innovations, right? For, the world innovations. Why are you not walking to London? You understand? Why are you taking a plane? Things like that. There are already solutions present, right? So sometimes when you do need professional support, seek professional support, right? And also there are times where, because faith is very important for our lives. Faith is not something, is our lifestyle genuinely. Especially if you are a Christian. You can't take it out of your life. So when you tell someone that, God's going to handle it, it's because you genuinely believe God's going to handle it. But at the same time, someone saying that sometimes it can be, you giving that response can be invalidating what they are currently experiencing.
Their emotions.
So ask them questions, get more clarity on what it is they're experiencing, but don't try to solve it. So sometimes when you push it, it's because you feel like, I don't have the solution for this. I don't even know how to even begin. But it's going to be great.
But it's well. It is what has done a number on us Nigerians, and I think Africans in general, but it is well. And it's like, this person doesn't feel that way right now. And it's okay.
Don't try to solve it.
I think that's the thing what you said, like, a lot of times we're trying to, particularly when people come to us, like they're coming to us and they're trying to share something that is difficult with us. We want to help. And we think help means for us to fix the thing and fix the problem and become the solution. And sometimes, like, it just really means just to hold space. Maybe you just need to hear them out. Like, maybe you just need to be there with them in that moment. Maybe you don't need to give advice. Like, that is something I had to learn. Like, you don't have to always give advice, Kamsi. Anti-advice. So, like, sometimes allow yourself to just hear this person out and just be there for them, right? And actually, I want to talk about that because I think this is actually a very important thing for us to talk about is this balance between, for example, faith and, like, psychology, like in terms of, like, whether it's therapy and all of that. I think that we live in a world where we consider them two sides of a coin. We consider them from divergent worlds. We consider them like, difference. Whereas, like, they are complementary in that what you said, like, just the way that God gave doctors wisdom to be able to do their bits, like, God also gave psychologists and therapists wisdom. And it's like, of course, things can be corrupted. But then we immediately just assume that the presence of faith means the absence of allowing psychological intervention, for example, particularly in places like Nigeria. I grew up with, situations where we all grew up with things where you see someone maybe going through something and immediately they're already quick to label that person is mad, that person is crazy, that person is this thing. Whereas that person might have a psychological break or has bipolar disorder or is having something that is actually diagnosable and a psychologist can actually help with, right? I definitely think that there's a place for faith in terms of, like, miracles and the miraculous and having faith. But I think that we have demonized things like therapy. We have demonized things like seeking psychological help. Like, we've put so much shame to it. I mean, I think this is something that is an African context, and I think we're getting better, but it's something that it is. So how would you say, how would you say we are able to navigate the balance? Particularly, you are a believer, you are a Christian, you are also someone who's a psychology professional, right? And obviously a therapist. How do you navigate the balance between faith and therapy, for example?
That's a very, very, I keep saying that's a very interesting question. You have a great lineup of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Faith and therapy. So it comes, let me even start with the fact that in the Bible, right, there's the spirit of excellence, spirit of counsel. And it's a prayer I pray a lot. God, give me the spirit of excellence, give me the spirit of counsel. Spirit of counsel is therapy. That is it. Do you understand? Being able to hold space for someone, being able to provide support for whatever concern is being presented, provide tools that could help them. And therapy is not, of course, a place where you go and your therapist become your God. Because I guess that's where the concern is, where it's almost like this person is supposed to be that person who gives me all the advice, all the solution. But that's not true.
Yeah.
Your therapist instead is someone who is working with you, but non-judgmentally, right? Someone who, because not everyone has that space, right? And even if you have people who are not judgmental in your life, you might not have people who give you the right tools. So that's what therapy does, right? It helps you unravel things because you're human living on earth, right? Having human experiences, right? Trauma, whatever it is. And even if you've not gone through any trauma, you might have anxieties around certain things. And what that entails is that you want someone to communicate with, share your burden with, right? And when you share your burden, that person provides you that kind of support where not everyone around you can. Do you not see how that in itself is divinely ordained? Right? Yeah. Because if you have a space where I can go share, but understand that this person is not my God. So I always tell my clients when I onboard them, my goal for you in therapy is to make you your own therapist. So I don't plan for them to stay with me for ever, We have a timeline, based on what presenting concern it is that they have. And sometimes they want to renew, I want to continue, but I always find the time where I still want to nip it and have them leave, using those tools. And when you do need more support, then come back. But not reliance on me, right? Faith, now, it's really not separate. That's why I almost cannot separate it, right?
I think also because of that's from where you are sitting, like you're navigating that world, those two complementary worlds all the time, so you can see it very clearly. But for a lot of people, they just see it as it's so separate.
It's also about knowing place for things.
Yep.
So you have your pastors who provide support for you, counseling. So people are like, I can go to my pastors and talk to them about this. Maybe my marriage counselors, great, really great, right? But understand that your counselors are trained in a format. And if you really want holistic, you want to manage it together. So for example, you have, certain anxieties and you go to your pastors, they provide you with support. It can be limited. So your well-being, let's always remember our well-being has social, we have spiritual, we have emotional, we have financial. You have different aspects to your well-being. So someone is taking care of your spiritual. Who's taking care of your emotional and mental well-being?
Yeah.
Do you see it now? So it's not either or, right? Someone who is having bipolar, symptoms, and you're like, God forbid, I'm going to pray it out. However, you could just ask the right questions, talk to somebody, and you realize you're not so isolated. Because people with bipolar disorder, there's the tendency of suicidality. And it's very high. So imagine someone like that. The reason for the suicidality is the shame, the isolation. Not everyone gets them. And at some point, people who empathize get so-called fed up. So they start saying things like, is it just you? You're the only one that has this roller coaster of emotions. Is it just you? And you can imagine how that kind of person would feel, right? But if you go to a professional, they know this is expected. They know that you exist on a spectrum. Your mood is not like what every other person's mood would look like, right? So you can revolve from manic to depressive state. And your goal is to stay euthymic as much as possible. And what therapy will teach you that other places will not teach you is that, okay, to stay euthymic, there are certain things you have to understand.
Like, define what euthymic is for someone who doesn't know.
Okay, so euthymic is more normal.
Yeah.
Right? More baseline.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the best way to, baseline mode. So I feel happy, I feel sad, but not to the extremes of them. Yeah. So manic is like very happy. Ooh, I need to start this project. We're doing so many things. And then depressive looks like, you're very low, like the lowest of lows. No. Yeah. But euthymic is like, you feel both emotions, and even a myriad of others, but it's not so severe, right? And you want to stay there as much as possible, and that's what therapy helps you to do. Helps you through that, helps you understand your warning signs as to, when you are tilting towards this end of the spectrum, tilting to this end of the spectrum. Not everybody can teach you that. So you don't say, I'm going to my therapist, to my pastor for this. No, you go to your therapist for that. But then you also go to your pastor for the needs that your pastor will be able to provide support for. Absolutely. You want people who cover you spiritually. People who you can pray with, people who you can share, concerns. I'm going through this struggle. Maybe my prayer life isn't so great. You can't talk to me about your prayer life not doing so great, even though I'm a therapist and I'm a Christian, right? I'll still want you to talk to your pastor right? Who would really go deep with you, because the person will be checking on you in that, because that will go outside of the ethics of what my current service with you is.
No, that's so beautiful. I think that funny thing is that because of there's still this separation between like, faith and like things like therapists or psychology services. A lot of people, and I'm not trying to be controversial when I say this, a lot of people who, are believers, they're Christians, like, they're praying, all of these different things, but then like emotionally they're not regulated. Right. And, they're like the emotion they're not regulated. Maybe, for example, like it's coming off in like, anger issues, and it's coming off in like, for example, like just having not like just a lot of things, right? And then immediately it's just classified as this person maybe they need deliverance, or this person needs, and so it's just put in one. And but mind you, like I'm not even against quote unquote deliverance in the sense that maybe there are people that do need deliverance, right? And I'm not even trying to negate that, but I'm speaking to the fact that some of those people actually just need psychological help, but somehow we've and the thing is that we've removed it for a lot of people. I've removed it from like the scope of what a Christian or a believer should be able to do. That people don't even like to think about it. Once they think about it, they're like, oh no, that means I don't have enough faith in God. And it's like you can have faith in God, and God is telling you to go to your therapist and psychologist that you need help. Someone to be able to help you navigate this emotionally. Maybe you don't have language or the issues that you're dealing with. You're dealing with depression or anxiety, and people are telling you like, oh, just pray and believe in God. And I think that you should pray and believe in God. You should definitely pray and hope for it, deliverance. Sometimes it happens supernaturally. But also, a lot of times, you just need some help. You need tools. You need strategies to be able to navigate that. And we need to create and hold space for that too. Like, those two things can coexist at the same time. And God is not looking down at you and looking at and wondering like, oh, don't you believe in me for not doing like. And so I think that it's just like you go to a hospital and you're having malaria and they give you malaria medicine, and it's like you are going through depression, and what's wrong with being able to say, oh, let me go to a psychologist or a therapist and be like, oh, how can I deal with this? How can I be able to navigate this? And they help you to go through that. I've seen so many people who have gone to, I've actually never been to therapy before, but I feel like I'm looking my own therapist, but I feel
Can you really be your own therapist?
I definitely am not.
You
I feel
remember
like
the blind spot thing we talked about earlier?
Yeah, but I'm just being honest. Like I feel like I've had to be my own therapist, but I would be very open to going to therapy. Like I'm not even saying like I just haven't done it. Like it's one of those things where I would like to do, but I just haven't done. But I've read so many things about like I'm a psychology geek. Like I love learning things about psychology and just generally. So it's like trying to understand myself, understand my own emotions. Like you said, there's so many things that you will not be able to see. Sometimes you're even talking to someone and the person can see clearly things that you're struggling with, but you don't see it, right? And so I love what you've just shared about faith and all of that. What do you think that, not everyone can obviously afford therapy, right? Not everyone can afford, a psychologist, unfortunately. Wish more people could have access to it. But say, for example, someone is dealing with things and maybe they're on their own journey of healing and they don't necessarily know where to start. Like they don't even know where to start. Like what would you say that they should, how would you say that they should start? Where would you say that they should start from? In emotional well-being and trying to create great emotional hygiene.
So someone who can afford therapy.
Who cannot, yeah.
And some people can even afford it, but they're not ready for what therapy would require of them.
What does that mean, not ready?
So therapy really is a commitment. So people don't come to therapy just, I said Nigeria is very crisis, and then they make that commitment because, it's like, I absolutely now have to do this, right? But it's also a commitment where some people, it's preventive, right? And they recognize that and they, seek support for, preventive. So they don't have a breakdown, they don't get overwhelmed, they don't have those difficulties that then affect their mental health holistically.
Yeah.
But what is good well-being hygiene? What is good mental health hygiene? You can't access therapy, or you can access therapy, but you don't think you are ready for that full-on commitment. It would look like you creating space and understanding that this is an aspect of my life that needs attention, right? So usually when we make time for hangouts, so that's your social well-being. We make out time for, people I care about, somehow I show up for them, right? Maybe I'm visiting their children, spending time with their children, go to this person's wedding, just make sure I'm present. It's the same way you have to make sure you're present for yourself. So you take care of your physical health by, going to the gym. For example, taking your medications if you have any, doing your blood checks and all that. It's the same way you make out space for that. So would I be doing this on a weekly basis, to journal, right? Journaling is very, very great.
I love it. I'm a journaling girly.
Yeah. Journaling is great. Doing that helps you to first be more clear about how you think, how you
Yeah.
process the world around you,
Yeah.
you start to pick up your own thought distortions. So the thing is,
I love
with
that.
the distortions, you might not know that you're even having distortions, but you might start to pick them up,
Yeah.
right? Because you're journaling, like, oh, I've been thinking this way. What if there's another way to think about this,
Yeah.
same concern that I'm having, right? What if there's another lens to look at it?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people actually live life on autopilot, but they don't realize they're
Yeah.
living life on autopilot. They're just going, they're just reacting, they're just living. They don't ever take any time to think about how do they actually feel about this, like what is going through their mind, what is happening in their inner world. And so I think journaling is a very good way to be able to understand how you're thinking, how you're going through, how you're navigating your emotions. Yeah,
Journaling, right? But while you do it, you want to do journaling in an intentional way.
yeah. I was gonna ask about the how. What's the best way to do it?
Yeah. So
It's not just diary, like, oh, I went to the market
Yeah.
today. I went to
yeah.
yeah.
There should be elements for awareness of what the concerns are. There should be elements where shifts are happening. So I can be aware of a concern, but I don't stay there. In therapy, you never stay in the problem, right? You make shifts, right? So we identify the problem, then we start to make shifts, right? So maybe for you, it's more cognitive issues you're having, right? So that's you're having more thought-focused issues. So what that means is maybe your core beliefs are the problem. So maybe you believe you are not enough. So what that means is it's showing up in every aspect of your life, your relationships. You are constantly insecure. At work, you have imposter syndrome. It just shows up
Yeah.
in so many ways. And that's just as a result of said core belief. Now, if you're not doing it from a professional point of view to be a thing where, okay, once I'm aware of whatever concern is. So this week, I noticed I've been low. I've been very, when people talk to me, I was snappy. What really happened? What's been happening with me? You probe on that. You ask yourself those questions. You answer those questions. And very honest, who is reading your diary? Make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
No one is really reading it at home. If you can't keep it safe, then use Google Keep. As long as AI doesn't start reading Google Keep anyways.
Wow, let's not go there.
Then, start making shifts. Okay, so what can I do about this right now? If I'm to make a change, regarding this concern, right? If I'm to look at it from a different lens, right? So one other way is like, if someone I love is going through this exact same concern I'm going through, what would I give them as an advice? What would I tell them to do? And we find that we're able to find solutions faster that way. So usually when it's my own, it's like
when
I
you're
feel
trying
blocked.
to think about it as outside yourself.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it helps with shifting. So it's like someone else I know that I love very dearly, maybe whoever you want to imagine it to be, right? But I cherish this person and I don't want this person to make a wrong decision, to be hurt. What would I tell this person? Knowing everything I just stated now, right? And that would inform what your own personal shift will be, right?
What if, like, as you're trying to advise this person, you talked about like how your emotional like reception of things can be skewed. What if like you would give bad advice even to that person? Like how? So like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, what do you do then?
So if you feel like you don't trust what your advice is,
Yeah.
right? So that's why mental health hygiene is not just you. That's where the support comes in as well. So you also want to have, even if it's one person, maybe not just one, two, right? That you can talk to as well. So you've given yourself this advice, you've gone through it, right? You also want to like bounce the idea of somebody else.
Okay.
And it might not even be a decision you want to make. It might just be a concern that you need catharsis from. So you just want to like share and then get a release from, right?
Yeah.
And you talk to somebody, it could be your father, it could be a sibling.
Best friend, yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't even matter about age gap. Because funny enough, I find all my siblings are younger than me, obviously.
Yeah.
But when I talk to them, the insights they give me,
You're like, I didn't know you had sense like this.
So if you can't access therapy, that's a way. You have people in your network currently, but people you already vetted as safe. You feel at ease with them. You don't feel judged because that's what your therapist is, of course, confidential space where you don't feel judged. You can open up, your concerns are not leaving the confines of that therapy room.
Yeah.
So it's someone who replicates that in your life.
Yeah.
And for some people, that might be the pastor. So you know why we said some people will substitute it.
Yeah.
If for you that is, but you also always need to know there's a point where I need to seek professional support. And when you need to seek professional support is when this emotional concern, this mental health concern is currently affecting my life, right? So maybe it's affecting my work. If you're studying, you can't focus. Whatever it is, in what way it's affecting your life, then I need to get professional support because this is not something that I can manage myself.
That's really interesting. So aside from journaling, because I mean what you just said with journaling is actually very insightful, because I think, like, journaling, of course you journal, you share things, you kind of give yourself advice as if it were not you. And then if, for example, you think that you're not great with that, you can also ask for professional help in that way. But aside from journaling, what else would you say are like tools for people to be able to like develop great emotional and mental hygiene?
So other tools will be what your lifestyle looks like. We can't pretend to ourselves. So you might pretend to the whole world,
Yep.
but
And
you
on
can't
social
pretend
media.
to yourself. But you can't pretend to yourself.
Yeah.
So what are habits that you engage in that makes you lose confidence? That makes you start to build self-doubt? Things about yourself that make you not the strong self that you should be. So what that looks like is, if you're someone who says you will do this and you never show up to do that thing, no one else knows. They may see you as this person who is great, but you are significantly behind on things that you should have done, and you feel like you don't feel so great about how you've been performing maybe in the past 3 months. Yes, you can hold space for yourself, but holding space for yourself does not mean you stay there. You know how we talked about seeing the problem, being aware of it does not mean we then stay there. You still make shifts, right?
Yeah.
But gradually, right? So if
Yeah.
I'm going to reflect on my whole life right now, what is currently accommodating these bad things I'm currently doing, whatever it is. So if, for example, you feel like the thing that is affecting your mental well-being is the relationships you have, so maybe you have friends who constantly pull you down. So their presence drain you, but you show up, you still show up to all their invites, everything they tell you to do. And
Why do we do that? I know it's a thing that happens, but I don't know why we do that. Like, we just feel like we have to like perform this status quo, even when you don't feel comfortable with people. But yeah, it's a thing that happens.
Why do we do that?
No, we don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
That's a whole conversation on its own, to be honest. But
yeah. But yes, what would definitely help will be to make sure you are who you say you are to yourself, as much as what the world sees. Because what the world sees is just a fragment, right? So be someone of integrity to yourself.
Be honest to yourself. Like, I feel like low key, very high key actually, we know when we're being dishonest to ourselves. A lot of times when we're showing, like, for example, there's a particular person, and I'm not going to obviously mention names, but a particular person that, like, we're friends at some point in my life, like when I was young. And one thing they say about getting older, as you get older, like your filter for the kind of things you're looking for in friendship becomes sharper. Like when you were younger, you probably just accept anything, like, oh, we like the same kind of food, we have the same style, like, let's be friends. And as you get older, you just realize that maybe that's not how you should be selecting friendships. And then sometimes I remember having a particular friend at the time where I just feel like every single time I hang out with her, like, what you said about your emotional, like your nervous system, it always felt dysregulated. I just felt like I would always feel uncomfortable around this person. And then I didn't have language for it, so I didn't really understand what that really meant. But I just know that I always felt like when I was with her, I always felt like I was putting on a mask. Like, I always felt like I was not myself. And I can't blame her for that, obviously. That's also, like, I have a part to play in that, because, like, you didn't owe her that mask. Do you understand? You could have just been yourself. But I'm saying that, I always felt like I had to perform something that I was not when I was that person. And I was like, what about myself, or what about this person makes me feel like I have to perform, right? And so there are times when it's something that I think I need to work on myself to actually allow myself to be more authentic. But there are times when you actually recognize that I think something about the person is just not aligned with who you are. And what I realized about that particular, because it can be different things, but what I realized about that particular person was because there were things, our values just did not align in a lot of ways. But I just felt like, oh, she's a friend. Like, I used to believe that friendship is that you accept everything. Like, whatever the person is and does, like, you accept that. And it's like, you just have to accept. And I think there's a place for acceptance in friendship. Like, you're not expecting perfect people. But I think at the same time, you have to also realize that you have some values that are probably non-negotiables for you. And then if someone just doesn't align with that, like, maybe they're not meant to be your friend. And I think that's the thing that is has been very hard for me to accept as I got older, that not everyone that you built a friendship with are supposed to be a friend forever. Some friendship was for a time and for a season, and sometimes, like, you're supposed to, that friendship, that season has ended, right? And I think for that particular friendship that I'm thinking about, I just realized that I did not feel myself with that person anymore. I feel like she reminded me of a different version of myself that I had, quote unquote. I no longer was that person. And I felt like every time I was with this person, I kept on feeling like I had to show up as that person, right? Even if I had grown out of it, right? And I don't know why we do that, but it's something that I realized that, you know what, like I'm going to show up as myself to whoever I encounter. And then if it doesn't work out, if, for example, we don't end up being friends and we don't continue being friends, that's okay. Like, maybe I'm not even the best friend to you, and you may not, like, it doesn't have to be so hard. But I think that sometimes, like, we just want to hold on to everything that we ever had. We don't want to let go. I feel like you have a lot there thinking about. I want you to say, like, I feel like you were thinking about a lot. You're like,
So with this thing called friendship, so what you're describing now, a lot has changed with you.
Yeah.
Right? The kind of person you were at the time you were friends with this person.
Yeah. Not like I was a different person, but just some things that, you know, you've grown up, you've outgrown, you've stopped thinking about things in a particular way and all of that. So yeah.
Did you invite them to this new you? To the new Kamsi?
No, I didn't. Yeah, there's something there. Like, so I feel like that was partly my fault as well, because I felt like I had to go on with the person that you met me as, but I could have allowed myself to be myself, my now self, my true self, to this person and see if they fit. But I don't know. Like, I felt like because I knew how the person was, I just felt like they wouldn't accept the person that I am now.
That's mind reading. So you are assuming.
Clock me.
So you're assuming what
that.
should feel, you know, before even asking any questions. Let clarity tell you your information. Like, let clarity give you the information. So you're changing, as we all would. Imagine someone who got married. 10 years later, they're not the same person.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like that. You're not going to be the same person. Same thing with friendship, right? 2 years. We constantly iterate. And we invite people to the growth that we're experiencing. Now, it would be, would they accept it or not? So you are assuming she might not because of your experience with her, maybe because of your predicting her previous behavior and how it would be right now. But invite her. So it could be, an example I would give would be someone who used to drink.
Okay.
And had friends who, you know, they're all, after work, we meet somewhere, we just drink, you know, catch up, do things. But this person now has health concerns as a result and has been told to abstain from alcohol. So said person cannot be in such spaces again. So you can't be in that space that makes the habits that you're trying to stop easy to do. You have to, you know, let go of that kind of space. But you want to maintain the relationship still. What would that look like? So it looks like telling people, okay, I'm currently on a different journey, and this is why I'm on the journey. In the case that you want to join me on this journey, because some of them will have this health issue in like a year if they don't take, you know, you might be that person who would lead the way for them to make the change. Not everybody will make the change, mind you, but it's an opportunity. You have new insight. You're sharing new insight with your friends, right? Now, the friends who understand that, so you let them know, I can't drink any longer, but our hangouts, we can come to my house, you know, and do games night instead, right? We can come to my house and do strategy night instead, like things different from the context we used to meet. We still want the connection we had, but in a different context.
So does that mean that you cannot outgrow people? Because I feel like, you know, what you said, which is actually very profound. Like, it's very, you're right. I was mind reading. I was, I guess, projecting what I thought was true to her, and that could not, maybe that wasn't the case. But then I also felt like, and I hate the word saying that you have outgrown people. I think that is something that it feels very narcissistic to be like, oh, I've outgrown this person. Like, I'm not. It's not a level thing. It's more a story thing of like mindset and mentality. Like, we just don't have the same. So for me, it was more so coming from the angle, and I'm very happy to be wrong here, but like, it was more so from the angle of the fact that, like, I felt like, okay, the person that I'm trying to be, or the person that I am right now, is different from the person that you knew. And I understand that, you know, I could have introduced my new self to this person, but then I just felt like, okay, I mean, this is where you're at in your journey right now. Like, I just feel like maybe we're just not meant to be friends. Like, and the thing is that, like I said, I'm very, very happy to be right, but I just felt like you can actually just you can get to a point where you just realize you're not the same wavelength with this person anymore. And it doesn't have to be like this big. I don't believe, honestly, personally, I don't believe in saying things like, oh, you know, I think we should go our separate ways about this, because I feel like we're not on the same page anymore. Like, I feel like I just feel like, no. I mean, I also wouldn't ghost you, but I think sometimes like friendships might just like naturally sizzle. So I guess what I'm saying is that, can you outgrow friendships? That
statement. So the thing is, with friendships, right, I I don't have the popular opinion of like, and I struggled with this as well. I struggled with this because there's some friendship I had to transition. I prefer transition, right? So you know the way I talked about the person with alcohol.
Yeah.
Now he shares this experience with his friends. Not everybody's going to buy in, mind you. That's the signal of who is going to stay and who isn't. It doesn't mean the love isn't there. It just means that now I've shared my truth, and the people who are welcome, like who are open to being part of this truth, show up.
I like that actually better. It's almost like a thing of like, okay, let me reintroduce myself.
Yeah.
And then if you are fine to go on this journey with me that I'm on, like, okay, come along with this journey.
Yeah, you have the invitation.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
But then sometimes we are so quick to say that we're outgrown someone when we haven't even allowed them to see this new version of ourselves. You just actually just clocked me, because I was like, that actually is very true. And I think that, to be honest, like, I think maybe I always see this thing on, like, you know, people talking about misalignments, right? When you and your friends are not on the same wavelength, and you're like, you're not going to have the same kind of conversations and all of that. But then you can allow people to meet a different version of you. And if, for example, that they don't necessarily like that version, then, okay, friendship would naturally dissolve. But then don't make that decision before you've allowed them to even have that reintroduction in the first place. That's very interesting, actually. That's very insightful. That's why you're the therapist, not me. But yeah, I mean, we've had a really, really good conversation. But I want to talk about something, you know, just one thing that I feel like, you know, I've been thinking about recently, particularly about mental health, right? And I think having worked with so many people that, you know, in different industries, you know, places in life, and I'm sure there are a lot of things that you have observed that, particularly even in this Nigerian context, or just even generally, right, is something that people do that makes their mental health deteriorate, but they don't necessarily realize it. Like some things that people, for example, it could be a thing. And I think right now we're in a different generation where it's like, you know, the digital age, social media, all of these different things. What would you say is the most harmful thing right now to people's mental health that they don't realize?
The most harmful thing to people's mental health.
I mean, I'm sure it's not just one thing, but like in your own opinion, yeah.
So a lot of things. But of the things, right, one will be, there's too much noise right now in the world. So this is not even just the Nigerian context.
Yeah.
It's the point where if you ask yourself, when was the last time you were still?
Yeah.
When was the last time you listened to your thoughts?
Yeah.
When was the last time your thoughts were your thoughts? And not everybody's advice.
Yeah.
You know? Your dreams were your dreams. Everybody now has similar hobbies.
Yeah.
Have you noticed it?
Yeah, actually, because that's what's trending. That's what people are creating content about. Like now, if you're a wellness girl, you have to be drinking matcha. If not, like, are you really a wellness girl?
Are you really?
You have to be doing Pilates.
You're not doing Pilates,
like,
you know.
I mean, I do Pilates, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's like we're all just kind of regurgitating somewhat like the same lives in different ways, in different fonts. So, yeah.
So what that does, right, it's like you don't listen to your own voice. And with mental health, right, you have your emotions. It's very peculiar to you.
Yeah.
Because your emotions, you know, the lens you see the world through is very peculiar to you, because your experiences are very different from the next person's experiences, and how you view the world will be very different. So what that means is, if you don't have time to make space for that, you would only notice, you only pay attention to your mental health needs when you've got into a crisis. And that's typically what a lot of people do. Yeah. So, you know, some people say men don't really seek therapy, which is hilarious to me. Because
are you serious? Men seek therapy in Nigeria?
Yes, they do.
A lot.
Yes, they do.
I'm actually shocked.
Yes, they do.
I thought it would be a thing where it's like you probably get barely any male clients.
No, a lot.
Oh, that's good. I'm happy to hear that. Like, I mean, I guess we're living in a better world.
But what brings them is the question. So I find that most male clients, females are more preventive.
Yeah.
So they notice patterns in themselves. They come to seek support. Some is like, you know, you have people who maybe they are going through difficulties and they want to process with somebody. Yeah. Right? There's some people who their life is not going the way they want. You know, they want to redesign. You know, things like that. That's typically how women come in. Yeah. How men come in, something has happened. And it's like something serious has happened.
They're literally on the verge of a breakdown. They're like, you know what, well, this is why I need therapy now. Yeah. And that makes sense, actually. It's
actually very interesting to me how relationship issues get to men. It was true therapy that made me realize it.
We need a whole episode on this. Because I feel like a lot of girls are like, really, they care? Yeah. I thought they were mindless robots.
Yeah, they care. But it's usually because, I don't know, there's this element of, it came as a shock to me. You know, women, so when you notice something, you are processing it, but you're doing it gradually, right? But sometimes for guys, I might be wrong. I'm not, you know. So I'm describing what I've seen. And what I've seen is someone who is 1 a.m. So because on my website, when you book it, the timing is there.
Yeah.
So the 1 a.m.s, 2 a.m.s, 3 a.m.s, they're men.
Like they're literally like, I need to talk to you now. Like
Most
in the middle of
times,
the night, in
yes.
the middle of the night.
So
Wow.
when you book them for their session, which is of course during the day, you know, the normal therapy time, it's based on, or maybe someone broke up with them, maybe a partner moved with all the children, left the country. Those things don't happen without a sign. They don't happen without gradual, you know. Someone who will serve the divorce papers, you know, just things like that. Someone who is always something when he's like, oh, I need help now, solve my problem. But what were you doing with your mental health all along?
Wow.
Yeah, so prioritize mental health. Okay, if you
Sorry, just on that for a second, like, you know, do you think it's also because, like, I mean, obviously a lot of men struggle with like being vulnerable and being like opening up emotionally. So somehow I feel like I assume that they are more comfortable with the therapy because it feels like a stranger, like someone that doesn't really necessarily know them. So they're more comfortable with that. But even at that, they still leave it to the last minute because somehow they feel like as if like, oh, they don't need any help, they don't need any support. So so when you said that a lot of men come about like relationship issues, like what are they coming to be like, oh, you know, this. I'm actually so I wish I could be flying the wall in one of these sessions. So what do they say? Like they're like, oh, this girl did me wrong. This girl, like, obviously you can't say what they say, but like in the sense of like, what is the usual? Is it usually a thing of like just trying to be like, okay, how can I get through this?
Yeah. So sometimes first it may be like how they can appease her back, which is hilarious because you can't really appease her back, you know. But with the concerns they come with, right? You first want to like process. There are patterns that they've exhibited in relationships. So an example, of course, without giving too much specifics, so we just have more context.
Yeah.
An example is someone who, the wife, he just came home, the house was empty. The wife moved out with all the children. Neighbors were the one that even called him, but that already happened.
Yeah.
So at the time he found out, passports, everybody, like gone. They were never in the country. So it was after talking to the family, who they did not give him audience, but after a while he found out they had traveled. And, you know, it was his world, it just rocked, you know. And that was hard, you know. So when he came to therapy, the work we're doing, you know, was, of course, gradual. First get him to a regulated point because that was, like, very difficult. So he does not, like, do anything rash, you know. And also be in safe spaces. So have someone in the house with you at this time, right? That was the priority because when someone is at the most vulnerable state, you don't want them alone at that time, right? After that, they will not start working at, it came out of nowhere. You know that it came out of nowhere is never true.
Ever. There's no smoke without fire.
Yeah.
Literally.
Those signs are there. So those are the things we start coming up with the truths. You know, this truth where, you know, your partner felt neglected for years. Okay, so maybe you worked in the bank and you are barely home. But not just that, infidelity was heavy. When I say heavy, heavy. So your partner has a breaking point. She's human, right? We are not able to see her lens, see your lens. What can we do? Can it be salvaged? Is there anything possible? And now he now visits, right?
Wow.
But he needs to even be in a point where she even allowed him to even know where they were. Do you understand? Their relationship is now we're getting to that point where she starts to feel safe that she wants to be back in this relationship, right? And sometimes it's that heavy change that make them pay attention. So sometimes when the complaint comes, like, oh, you're just complaining, it doesn't register.
Yeah.
So it's those heavy change that then make the
and if they had probably started asking for help and support like earlier on, it wouldn't have gotten to that very dire situation. But they wait till it gets till everything has. Wow, that's so interesting. So I mean, you were talking about like noise and just like this generation, like how there's so much noise. So that is also a way for people that don't necessarily know their own voice or know their own self and all of that. You know, earlier on we're talking about how like there are different levels or ways to be able to like learn yourself. You talked about journaling, you talked about even through relationship feedback, right? And so you would also probably say that solitude, spending time with yourself is another way to get to know yourself and also be able to like develop a good mental hygiene, right? What would you say is a place for solitude and just spending time alone?
Place for solitude is stillness, right? Is a space where no matter how little it is, for you it could be, am I going to be doing meditations in the morning before I start my day. And
Yeah.
I don't want to say meditations just in the woo-woo way of
Yeah.
meditations. Is I'm at work now. Before I start this day, can I just sit still?
Yeah.
Right? And just breathe, right? Then plan my day constructively. So I feel like I actually have a sense of direction. It helps you not to feel like things are like just baseless,
Yeah.
right? Then also with your life, because one thing is we can live our lives very busy, and
Yeah.
then after a while we are like, this, where am I? You know,
Yeah.
10 years has gone, 3 years has gone, 5 years
This
has gone.
autopilot thing we're saying. Yep.
Yeah, and you've not paid attention to maybe the dream you had then, you're still pursuing, but it had expired a long time ago,
Yeah.
right? And now you are in a constant state of life dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
But because you don't have any reflection,
Yeah.
you know, in between, you don't pay attention to those
Yeah.
kind of content, right? Then having safe spaces around you too is very important. So something people don't have enough of is safe spaces. So there are some spaces where, male or female, right? If you have people around you where you don't feel safe enough to open up. Some people is their family, they don't feel safe. So some
Yeah.
people, their trigger is the family, right? Emotional
Yeah.
difficulties is the family. So maybe the family just doesn't get it, right? And you can't share, but you almost try to force it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to accept that, no, they
This
just
is not a safe space.
yes,
Actually.
it's not a safe space. And it's okay to know that they love me,
Yeah.
right? But they may not be able to hold this kind of space for me. And I might
Yeah.
need to like seek what that would look like
Yeah.
for me. Yeah. That's another thing. Then with regards to health in general. So if you're facing, you know, not everyone has like, oh, I'm going for it, going to get mental health support because I am just wanting to, you know, improve my mental health. You are going through a physical health
Yeah.
difficulty, you know, whatever diagnosis it is. You know, there's some people, you are carer to someone who has a major diagnosis. So maybe you're constantly visiting the hospital, you know, you're constantly in and out of the hospital. It takes a toll on you as the carer, right? Being able to allow, you know, for yourself to, sometimes, even down to postpartum where you see some moms, they are overwhelmed and they are crying.
Yeah.
And then they feel guilty that they are tired, right? Space for such things, they are huge, okay? If the hospital you use doesn't have such mental health providers available, you have to seek for it yourself, right? If there are support groups that are available, don't say, oh, it's not for me. Go and join them. Join the support group. And most times, most interventions, like I said, with the health aspect, when I saw patients, they will talk to their surgeon. And the surgeon will tell me, Judy, what do you tell my patients? Now they are ready to do this procedure. But it's because it's not something you know you need, but sometimes put yourself in those spaces because you know it's going to help you. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I feel like I've learned so much like from this conversation, and I think it's funny because like there's some things even while we're talking, like I said like, you clocked something that I was doing that I didn't even necessarily realize was a blind spot. And you know, this is one of those things where we say that sometimes like you actually just need help. Like there are things that no matter how smart or brilliant or even self-aware, you know, like, you know, a lot of us just feel like we're self-aware. I'm one of those people. I'm like, oh, I'm so self-aware, but
What are you doing about the awareness?
Exactly. And that creating space for you to even like understand, like, okay, like, where am I right now? Like emotionally, mentally, like, what am I doing? Is there anything that I'm missing in my life, in my relationship? Can I be a better friend, a better wife, a better daughter? You know, it helps you. Like, and I think generally, like, as a final question, because I feel like we've had a very, very, you know, long, but very, very meaningful conversation. But for anyone who's listening to this or watching this, they are at a place where they're struggling with their mental health and struggling with their emotional health, but like genuinely they don't know where to start from, because I think that they probably got a lot of information from this conversation, but sometimes it can be very difficult. Like when you're there, for example, maybe you are literally in the middle of a triggering environment, whether it's in a family or, you know, in a home, or, you know, whether it's in a workplace that is toxic, or you are in a marriage that is abusive, or, you know, there's so many different contexts, right? And they're struggling with their mental health and emotional health, but they don't know where to start from. And maybe that person is also a believer, but they still don't even have those spaces to be able to allow themselves to be, right? What would you say to that person? Where would you say they can start from?
For someone who's going through a difficult marriage, don't try to solve it by yourself, because we don't know the severity of what the person is going through.
Yeah.
Right? It could be emotional abuse, because some people feel like even if it's not physical abuse, oh, I can handle it. You can't handle it. Sorry.
Yeah.
You need professional help. When you've identified that I'm having recurring difficulties, my mood has been low for a lengthy period of time, I've not been happy, I have anxiety, but for a lengthy period of time, I'm constantly restless, I'm struggling with my sleep now, it could even be your work context is very toxic. So when you go to the office, you're like panting, right? You talk to people and you don't even know, is it safe here? Is it not safe here? You are assuming, the next meeting is they're about to fire you. Whatever the case may be. You would need to talk to somebody, right? Having a therapist is not. Everyone needs a therapist, even therapists. Yeah. So the minute we normalize it, I think it eases things. 1 in 4 persons struggles with a mental health issue. So put that into context. You have 4 friends. That's
actually a lot higher than I would have thought.
Yeah. So what then does that say about, you have a family and nobody goes to therapy? But some people, or maybe yourself, right? Because you can't solve everything yourself. You know why we say you're going to journal? I still want to make sure people realize that that's not the end all be all. Because you might not, how you said while the person makes the restructuring, they might be making it from their own skewed lens, which is true, right? But what therapy builds you with is not to advertise what therapy is, but it's like, I will do this checkup. So like, can I do this emotional well-being checkup to see how I'm actually feeling, right? And then when I do that, have someone who will tell me the truth, but not in the sense of, because I have things I'm predisposed to doing. Get the support for that. And before you know it, you are ahead of it. So if you're someone who, for example, the way your lens of the world is very negatively skewed. So your core beliefs are difficult. In sessions, it doesn't even take too much, right? A couple months, you'll be done with that kind of work, your cognitive work. And when you're done with it, you get to the point where you start reviewing things better. You have more balanced thoughts. And it doesn't mean the negative thoughts don't come, but when they come, you process them much, much, much better than you would previously. So if you're going through difficulty, especially if you're going through relationships that are difficult, don't try to do it yourself, because at that time, your self-esteem is not where it should be. If you've gotten emotional abuse for a length of time. Like, you understand what I mean? So that's why you ask, people ask, why did you stay for so long? No, they stayed for so long for so many reasons, and they can't really explain it. And that question in itself is shameful. The answer to that
putting
is
the
shame
on the victim.
Yes. So you don't want to do that. If you know someone, you can help the person, get the right help. Let them get the right help. Not everybody needs to get one-on-one therapy. Sometimes it's support group of the specific need that you have.
Well, what if...
For professional help, it should not be neglected.
I honestly really, really, really believe in professional help. I think that for everyone that can, I think it's beautiful to be able to like get therapy and professional service. But what about the person that cannot? Like whether they cannot afford it, or they find it difficult to, be able to do that because of their family or their whatever experience they're in. Like, what about that person? What would you? Because I feel like I wouldn't want to say a thing where someone just thinks that, okay, I can't afford therapy, which means that my mental health, I can't do anything about this. Like, what is a? Because at the end of the day, like there is, I know that is like a whole world of work for it to be done.
It is.
But what is a one step? What is one step?
So if you can't afford therapy, right? There are therapist created tools. So
yes,
tools that therapists themselves have designed that can help you in your own secret place.
Okay.
Right, so you can access those tools and conduct mini therapy sessions with yourself, if we term it that way. Some come in form of books, right? So workbooks that you work on specific things, that you get those.
You even have your own, your quiet therapist.
Right, which provides you with prompt and then journal where you and I think answer the questions.
That's really amazing,
Because once a therapist designs something, they design based on, okay, this person is going to go through this flow. They're imagining how it would be for the patient who is not seen, one-on-one. Because some people will not be in active therapy. So there are some patients, their recommendation is not that they continue to be in therapy. It's that they need to just have that space. Because what they have is not that high severity scale, right? So they need to have that space where they are processing it in a better manner. So that's why I won't just say journaling, but journaling the right way. So if you can access therapist design tools, I would admonish that hugely. So for example, your quiet therapist, like, I designed. There's also something, I found recently that I'm going to get for myself, which is very interesting. It's by a doctor. It's something about ADD.
Okay.
Right, and it's a program.
Can you share like the name?
I don't know the entire name, but
Okay.
his name is Dr. Amen.
Okay.
I'm sure you know his name. He's the one that did the brain test for Kim Kardashian.
Oh, okay. I've seen that.
Yes. Okay. So he has a program because I went to the website. I was really curious about his work. So I went to the website and there's a program I'm going to enroll myself into. So you're a therapist, you're still going to get
Yeah.
like support for certain things. You know, don't feel like, oh, it's ever over.
Yeah.
There are some things that, you know, oh, I want to manage this. And if there's someone else who is on, like this is their specialty, because we have
Yeah.
various specialties. So this is your specialty and you've designed something, go for it. So therapists designed products would definitely help you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Judith. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing yourself to be seen.
Yeah.
I feel like I love the fact that, you know, to be honest, you demystified therapy for anyone, I'm sure anyone that is listening, and also just even for the fact that even therapists need therapy too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not something that is like, oh, you know, once you've learned something, you know, you're all good. Like, you're healed forever. I think healing is never a linear journey. It's something that it's honestly like a lifelong process of just continuing to find and refine, you know, who you are and know yourself. So thank you so much for just sharing all you've shared with us today. And for anyone here, you know, one thing that we actually do on To Be Seen is we try to encourage people to journal. Like, of course, like it doesn't end there because, of course, like you still there are other things to do. But then I think it's so important for people. A lot of times, people don't even take time to sit down and just sit with their thoughts, or even allow themselves to process emotions. And so, at the end of every episode, we just share like a journal prompt for people to share and just think back about some certain things. And I feel like from this conversation, our journal prompts, and I want everyone that is listening to this to actually take some time, like on your phone or your notepad, actually sit with this and actually, you know, write this out, whatever comes to you, and it's true. It might help to put to language some things that you've never actually thought about for yourself before, right? And today's episode's prompt is, what are the small ways you've been neglecting your own mental and emotional needs? And what would it look like to start honoring them? So I want you guys to sit with that. Sit with that. Judith has given us so many tools, so many tips, and so I want us to sit with that. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this episode of To Be Seen. I am so grateful to have your time, to have your presence, to have, you know, you just being here. And we'll see you guys in our very, very next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.